Good morning, friends. You're here with CMajor on CMajor Before The Show. It's an early Saturday morning, and we're with you. We're so glad you're here today, and thank you for joining us. Today is our last broadcast for the Keyboard Situation Playing by Chords and by Color series. So thank you so much for being here today. It's been a long journey. It's been 12 shows. Can you believe it? So we're aiming today, and we're not going to keep you that long because I really want to finish out the series so I can move on to other things. And before I forget, next week will be a special Halloween presentation because it will be October 27th. So the Saturday before Halloween, we're aiming to have a little bit of fun and just launch into some spooky piano stories. They'll be friendly, don't worry. Not any real ghost stories or anything like that, but just in the spirit of Halloween. So, excuse me, Halloween was something that I had a chance to participate in when I was growing up. And so I know some people don't believe in it, but it's just considered fun. It's a seasonal thing to do along with pumpkin season and pumpkin picking and celebrating fall all year round if you're in the spirit of that. So I'm in a group that does that. So we like to do that. But thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate you being here. It's very early. So we're going to have a lot on today's show because I need to give some shout outs. It's been a long time since I've done that. It's been a long time since I've given some student shout outs. I'm going to do a little bit of playing today as well, but not as much as I did last week. And so I'll just be breaking up the broadcast with recorded music, but I might play a little bit just to demonstrate. So let me go ahead and give those shout outs because I'm very excited about those. I had some students that just really showed me this week that they really love music and that they really are willing to go the distance. You know, sometimes you, as a piano teacher, as a private teacher, sometimes you get a little, I don't want to say you get a little down, but you get a little taken aback sometimes by how much students will tell you they have so many other, I'm getting a little tongue-tied trying to speak about it, but so many other priorities on the table. And that music always takes a backseat. And so that can be that can take you aback a little bit as a piano teacher. It really makes you feel a little taken aback. That's the only way I know how to describe it. I won't use any other words to describe that feeling, but it's just, wow, you know, when will music take more of a front seat in their lives? And this week it happened. I could hardly believe it. I could hardly contain my excitement. So one student showed me that she picked out a song all on her own. We had been talking about a way for her to play music that she enjoys and how to turn her music making into a lead sheet. And not only did she show me she could turn her music making into something that's accessible for her, she also wrote her own introduction to the music. I was floored. I couldn't believe it. So big shout out to her. Big shout out. Big cheers. That really is something to cheer about. That really is something to cheer about. I'm almost getting choked up just thinking about it. I'm almost getting choked up just thinking about it. And, you know, so if you hear me clear my throat, I'm getting a little bit choked up, but I'm getting adjusted to this weather. Are you in the greater New York City area? The weather has changed. It is definitely fall, and it's very crisp in the air. So, and we are broadcasting on a Saturday morning. So if my voice sounds a little bit different, it's because I have that morning voice. And at the same time, the weather has changed just a little bit, so bear with me today. But that student, I just really was so, I don't even want to use the word proud. because it's not about that. I was happy for her. That's really what it was. I was happy for her, and I am happy for her. She's found her joy in music making. And this has come, ladies and gentlemen, after many years of her, and she will tell you this story, of her going through other teachers that just weren't able to motivate her. So her parents are happy. Her grandparents are happy. I believe she's the only pianist in her family. Everyone else kind of sings a little bit and sings around her playing. But she struggled so hard with reading notes and playing those songs that are in the method books. And she just said, she just came to me and said, she could no longer play the piano in this way, but she wanted to keep playing the piano. And her parents came to me with tears in their eyes, asking me to do something. So it seems like we've had a breakthrough with her, and this week was that breakthrough. So much to celebrate with that student. And for those of you listening, if you're out there and you think that music is not worthwhile because you just didn't have the right teacher to motivate you, please, I'm almost begging you today, go out and find that right teacher for yourself. You don't know who that person may be, but it's got to be somebody that you're comfortable with. And it could be a music professional from one of the top conservatories, if that's what you prefer. But I like what that book says, Learn to Play a Musical Instrument. It talks to adult learners mainly. But it also encourages anyone looking to continue making music to find someone they feel they can learn from. I think that is so important, because what we were taught in graduate school is to have the student be more self-directed. I think they use a different term now, but make that student feel the power of making choices so that when you're not there, they can make those choices. And so I'm very happy to say that what I learned in graduate school works. It's a very different way from how I learned to play the piano, and I had to resolve that too. I had to say, you know what? You're not going to learn to play classical the way that I learned to play classical music. I learned from a method that really is no longer published, but it was a great method for me, and it worked. So you just have to use what's out there to keep people making music. I certainly think it's a worthwhile pursuit. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Music is worthwhile as long as you're willing to give. Give your time, give your effort, give your attention, and you're going to see your life really change just because you sat down. You took the time to sit down at an instrument and make some music, whatever it may be. It could be chords, it could be scales, it could be something simple. It could be blues and jazz. We've talked about many different genres on this podcast. And speaking of which, I'm going to be talking a little bit about classical in a moment. But let me give another student a shout out. Now, this student shocked me this week because I had no idea how excited he was about music and music making. And so much so that he wants to be his own accompanist. He wants to be Billy Joel when he grows up. And that was really encouraging to know that. He wants to be able to sing and play. He wants to be able to do production. I also have another student that along those lines, he said he wants to be a DJ, he wants to be a pastor, and he wants to be a pianist. So these are students that are really young, but they have their parents' encouragement. So I had stopped for a while doing the shout-outs because I just felt like, okay, maybe I'm doing a little bit too much. But I know I have parental support, and I know I talk mainly to adults on this podcast, but if you are moms and dads and you're listening, find a way to let your children do what they love to do, because it really makes a difference in their enthusiasm. Now, the shock was that this student had attempted to make music in public before, and the turnout wasn't what he thought it would be, but he had it in his mind he was going to try again and do something totally different. So he did a great job. I'm really proud of him. I really have to use that word proud, because it took a while. It took a while to get him to the place where he could feel comfortable and confident to go in front of others. And not only did he go in front of others once, he went twice for an encore. So big shout out to this student. Big shout out. Yes, and I just want to say that I want to encourage his parents to keep him with music, even if he decides to go in a different direction in life, to just keep encouraging him, because I know he's going to be great. He's already great. So I want to say also a special shout out to the parents. Yes, and cheers to the parents. I had tears in my eyes watching my student perform. So I will be teaching a little bit later on this morning. So I have a full day of teaching ahead. So if anybody has any questions about piano lessons, feel free to reach out to me. You can reach out to me on social media. And by the way, my social media has changed a little bit. I know you've noticed. I've not been logging on as much. But that doesn't mean that I don't love you. That just means that I am busy. And I am going to be checking in for your homework. So don't worry about that. That will still be going on over at CMajor's Classroom. So I'll post as much as I can over there. Also, I want to encourage you and to invite you to tune in later on this evening as you can, because CMajor Before the Show also serves as a precursor to the CMajor radio show. Now, over there, we're talking about taking your first steps to learn music theory. Music theory does not have to be boring or scary. It's not a Halloween topic. But if you are interested in learning the essential elements of music, then tune in there. There's nothing to be anxious about. There's nothing to be scared about. There's nothing to feel, that is something you can't do. I don't know why people get so anxious when it comes to music theory. I really don't. I mean, it's just music. So we are at the point now where we're going to be talking about the degrees of a scale and then launching into tonic triads. So we talked a little bit about accidentals last week. That was an important topic, to be able to talk about accidentals. But the degrees of a scale, tonic triads, and if we have time, we'll go ahead and launch into intervals. And so what we're doing there is also closing out pretty much. It's not a series, but it's just really a discussion of the essential elements of making music. And I'm only going to stick with the most basic elements. And so I can already tell you that tonight's show, we'll be talking about the degrees of a scale, tonic triads, and if we get to it, we'll talk about intervals, the number of intervals. And I know I did share with you some pieces on the CMajor radio show last week. I did not post those. I thought I might. If I have a chance between this morning's broadcast and this evening's broadcast, I'll go ahead and post those over in CMajor's Classroom, because I wanted you to fish for accidentals. That's basically what I wanted you to do. I wanted you to be able to see what accidentals look like on a page. If you could get a copy of the score and look at those pieces of music, then it will give you a picture of that. So also coming up on the CMajor radio show next week, I had intended to go ahead and close out the essential elements, but in the spirit, again, of Halloween, I might be telling some little personal ghost stories over there as well. And friendly ghost stories. It's not even about a real ghost. It's just to add to the spookiness. Who knows what I'll come up with. I don't really do much playing over at the CMajor radio show. I really try to just have a discussion over there about the facts and to motivate anyone that's listening or taking exams or just wanting to learn to read music, because that's something I definitely believe in. So I think that's it for student shout-outs. Let me now launch into today's topic, because we're trying to round out our topic on picking out a melody and playing a melody. So have you been waiting for that? Have you been practicing your homework? hope so, because I think I assigned you some homework just to see if you could pick out a melody. So I'm going to be doing that with you this morning. Let me just turn down my music here for a moment, and let me get over to my little keyboard here. Someone wanted to know what keyboard I was playing. You know, there are a lot of curious people on the internet, you know. They always wanted to know what you're doing. So I happen to be playing and demonstrating on a slab. I am not demonstrating on a Steinway, although I wish I were demonstrating on a Steinway. That would be beautiful. But I'm going to put my book here aside because there's some things I want to talk about after I do this demonstration. So basically last week what I did was start to show you how to pick out a melody, and I believe I was using Amazing Grace to illustrate that or demonstrate that. So I hope you can hear me okay. Let me just test out the sound. It's still very early. I don't want to wake the neighbors. It's still dark outside, even though it's morning. And I apologize for that knocking sound. You know, that's just the keyboard, the way the keyboard is constructed. So that's what you hear. Okay? But at least you can hear the tone as well. So I'm not going to teach the whole Amazing Grace because I'm actually going to save teaching Amazing Grace or speaking more to that when I start talking to you about pentatonic scales and learning to play songs using a pentatonic scale. It was so funny. Somebody wrote a post about that, and they said only lazy people write using pentatonic scales or something like that. I thought that was very funny. I mean, technically, yeah, you could have a hit every single time you use a pentatonic scale. It's just 5 notes and make it sound really elaborate and add some fancy chords underneath, and then you have a hit, right? But anyway, we'll talk about that in a later broadcast. Also, I haven't forgotten that I'm going to be talking with you about ragtime and stride piano. So don't forget to tune in for that. I know there are a lot of stride players out there that do this seriously. I'm just so fascinated with that. Stride players that turn classical pieces into a ragtime feel and stride piano style. That's just hilarious. I love it every time I get to hear something like that. I just thought how clever that is. But we want to talk about ragtime in a more, a serious, I guess, in a more serious way, and then spend a lot of time just going with you through some of the history of ragtime. And so that's coming up as well. We have lots to get to, but definitely tune in next week for the Halloween broadcast. I think you're going to enjoy that. Okay, so for this morning's show, we were picking out the melody to Amazing Grace. Remember that? Right. So the main thing you want to do, and I'm going to be talking about intervals over at the CMajor radio show in an upcoming episode as well, so if you want to listen for that. So mainly you just need to think in terms of distance. You know, how far away is your melody? So I went up a fourth, then I went up a third, down a third, back up a third, down a second, down a second, down a third, and then down a second. So if you can think how far apart your melody is, your main melody is, then that will help you. And then we talked about top-down voicing last week. So there's lots of ways to even play that. Now, why I like playing by top-down voicing, and I realized I was doing this a lot in church. So I would have to say, in church, I tended to be less of an accompanist and really, to be honest, more of a soloist. So in the future, if I decide to play for church again, I think I will take more of an accompanist approach. and less of a soloist approach. And what I mean by that is sometimes people appreciate when you do that because they can tell what you're playing. So if you're chording the melody, people can tell what you're playing. They're like, oh yeah, that's Amazing Grace. That's my favorite song, or some other comment. But if I just play this, they may not get that. And they may just go, what was that you just played? So that's always a problem. You know, as a pianist, as a musician, as a person that's thinking structure, you know what the song is. But how do you communicate that song to others who are non-musicians so they can know what you're playing? So 9 times out of 10, they don't. And you just have to tell them, okay, your words are going to fall on, or don't say anything at all. You follow their words. They start singing, and then you start chording along, and then it sounds like the song. But let's just say if you had to play and people really wanted to know what you were playing so they could tell what you're playing, you would probably have to either chord the melody or just pick out the melody. Okay, so I would say as you're picking out the melody to Amazing Grace, that's just one example. Try to sing and pick it out at the same time if you can. And for those who are tonally challenged, then just pick it out mathematically. That's all I could tell you. I had one student who was able to do that. And so I think it's possible. Now because I've taught that student, I know that's possible. And so even with that, let me just put my microphone down for a moment. So I hope that's okay. So even if I just want to go, even if I want to just go by chords, I can start turning some of these chords into 7 chords and just taking my time. Chord the melody. Okay, and then I'm going to stop there because I don't want to play the entire song. The part I really want to get to is the part where I include a 9th chord. So you can do this in any key, but I included a 9th chord, and I'm going to give you the words for that. So it's Amazing Grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. Wretch. Okay, so write down that word. W-R-E-T-C-H. Wretch. Okay, so I'm going to show you how to play a D9 chord on that. Okay, that's wretch. And then you go into like me. Okay, and then you can play some other things, some other fills within that. And then I use that same D9th chord at the end. Okay, so once was blind, but now I see. Wait, once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see. So it looks like I used the word again. I used that chord again on the word blind. Was blind. Oh, actually it's on now. But now I see. Okay, so 2 parts in the song that you want to pay attention to. Pay attention to wretch and pay attention to now. So if you're chording, excuse me, if you're recording a song, then you want to know where you can put some other chords that will change the sound of the song. And then if you are recording that song, you can do that as well. Maybe throw in some seventh chords to change your sound. But a clue to where the chords will fall if you're playing just chords is just know where the words fall. Know where the words fall and what you want to add to the words. So, you know what? I am in need of some water right now. So what I'm going to do is put some music on. And then I'm going to step away for a moment. And then I'm going to come right back, okay? So let me see if I can get my music going again. And so give me a moment. I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. Thank you so much for being patient with me this morning because I had to step away and then I had to literally run back up here so I could talk to you further. So I think I resolved my situation with the morning voice. Let's say it that way. So did you get that? Did you get all of that? I hope so. Apologize for feeling so winded. I really did run. And so it's easy to think how you would play something by chords, once you really start to figure out where the chords fall on the words. And then if you care, you can improvise. And I always say this, I was really surprised. I was listening to and actually watching a televised event. I won't say which one. But on this event, during this event, this person played their own music for a very long time on the piano. And it was necessary because they were waiting for something else to happen. So they had to fill the time with music. And then they were choosing to play their own music. And it was also in a church situation that they were playing this music. But I was really surprised. This person wrote their own music. And it's very well known. But he never improvised the entire time. He just kept playing chords up and down the piano. And he didn't even improvise his own song. I was really surprised. That really would have stretched the time a little bit more. Even if he had made, some real departures using improvisation. But all he did was he kind of weaved in and out. He would kind of put in a different song in there in between and then come back to the song that he was supposed to stay on because there was a choir that was going to be singing as well. But I was really surprised to hear that. I thought, wow, okay. Because sometimes you take a lot of flack if you're a pianist and you don't improvise. People go, well, what's wrong with you? Do you know how to improvise? Why don't you improvise? And then I've played with pianists that maybe improvise a little too much. And they just keep on improvising. They try to play 1,000,000 notes in 1 minute. And I'm thinking, what are you doing? You're kind of losing the whole spirit of what the song is about. But anyway, I don't want to criticize anyone. It's all love. It's all music. So give yourself an applause, though. You've lasted throughout this whole entire series. And it's all about you. It really is all about you and your learning and what you can learn to help you go forward with your music making. That's really what it's all about. So we're running out today's broadcast. Thank you so much for listening to Playing by Chords and by Color. I think I said on my promotion for today's show, I think I said playing by chords and by ear. Well, we talked about color because I wanted you to think in terms of color. And then recently I ran into a student, and that's all her previous teacher did was outline things in color. Not every single note, but sections in color. And she said it did absolutely nothing for her learning. So everyone is different. You have to find what works for you. And so if color helps, add some color. Add some pops of color into your music making. And you don't have to be a child to do it. There are adult coloring books. There are ways to color as an adult that make sense. In the method that I was introducing, they were playing by chords and by color in the 1950s. That's kind of where I got the idea, and I see that that idea has carried over into other publishers. They use color a lot in their publishing. Maybe not so much note for note, like what I saw in that publication, but definitely to describe sections of music or maybe to describe the music alphabet over and over and over again. So it's a publisher's choice. It really is. But what's more fascinating, I think, since then is that publishers have chosen to use what they call beginner notes. So you'll see that a lot online. Just look for beginner notes. Don't look for easy piano because, as one student told me this week, what you think is easy may not be easy. So easy is a subjective term. Get with a music professional to have them explain to you what they think easy is and what would be easy for you if you are trying to learn by beginner notes. Now, I have certain students that just prefer to use beginner notes, period. They don't want to learn to read traditional notation. They've told me that. In the past, I called it text notation because I just wrote letters on a page for my students to follow. But if you do that with young students, the parents get upset. They don't want to see that. They want to know their child is learning to read symbols. And so if that's the case, parents, please feel free to tune in over to CMajor over on Blog Talk Radio. Because over there, I talk with you about notation and the essential elements for learning to play the piano and studying music theory and putting it all together. Now, let me say something else while it's on my mind. I really am excited about the CMajor radio show nowadays because we are going to be closing out our talk about just the first part of essential elements. Because if I go on and talk about other things, it really is going to be in the spirit of preparing you for a music exam or to go further in your music making. So you don't have to go that far with me. Just go to the basics, and then what I'm going to do after that in an upcoming series, I'm going to talk about a lot of different things, but I really want to start applying some of that knowledge. So we're going to pretend you are in a piano lesson, and that's coming up on the CMajor radio show in a matter of weeks. So tune in for that because that means I will start playing a little bit more over there on that broadcast. Not a whole lot. I'm not trying to show off as a performer or anything like that. It's just to show you what you can do to get yourself started on the piano, and don't be afraid of it. Just jump in and just start doing it. But speaking of my work as a performer, I'm very excited to announce that I had an opportunity last evening to perform with some colleagues, actually a colleague and one of his students, and it was very exciting. It's very exciting for me because it's been a long time since I've had a chance to really play some classical music in public. So I got to play some trills. That was really, really exciting and for me, and it was just really, really, really fun. So anybody who wants to know a little bit more about what we played in public, please let me know. I will be happy to tell you some of these pieces, but I am very excited. You know, I listen to New York's classical station, and so I'm always happy when I hear some music that I recognize or hear music by a composer that I recognize, and then if I go away to play some of that music, then it reminds me of what I've listened to already on the radio. That makes that composer who he is, really. And in a lot of cases, it is a he. But when you recognize, oh, that has to be Haydn. Like you've listened to enough music to know when you're hearing the music of Haydn, or when you're hearing the music of Beethoven, or when you're hearing the music of Haydn that borrows some elements from other composers and vice versa. Or if Beethoven borrows some elements from Haydn's music. You know, things like that. That's always exciting to hear. So, very excited. And let me just give a shout out to my colleague. Thank you so much for pulling me back into playing classical music. I never thought that I would be doing that again to this extent, but you have challenged me. And in return, I hope that we can challenge each other when it comes to playing classical music. Now, let me go over to that piece that I was excited about. So, my student I was telling you about earlier, oops, I'm dropping things all over the floor, was very excited about this song. So I'm going to share with you the song. Now, I'm not going to play it, because sometimes when you play music that's been reduced, meaning that it's from the recorded version. And this lets you know right now, I am not a classical snob. You know, the internet is so snippy sometimes. On the wild, wild west internet. The minute you start talking about classical music, all of a sudden you see these ads pop up. Why don't you join the elitist classical group? I'm like, what? Why would I do that? I'm not an elitist just because I like classical music. I like all music. And I'm just trying to share what I know about music with others. It's very friendly. It really is. And so I like all music. If I didn't like all music, I wouldn't even work with students that wanted to play something commercial like they do in this case. So, excuse me, while I clear my throat. I did not know the song before the student introduced it to me. And so it was very eye-opening for me what today's generation is thinking about. But it was with the parent support. So the parents actually came to me and said, do you have anything that would motivate my child to keep playing the piano? So I thought, well, let's look for something. So this is a song from the Lego movie that you may recognize if you saw the Lego movie. I don't think I've seen the Lego movie. So it's called Everything is Awesome. So if you have an Alexa system, just go, Alexa, play Everything is Awesome, and it should come up. The same way you would say, Alexa, play Crazy Train. I mean, it's the same thing. Just make Alexa do what she does and play the music that you want to hear. So the name of the song is Everything is Awesome. So it starts off, okay, that's all I'm going to play. And then it goes on with the words, everything is cool when you're part of a team. Now, what was exciting about this is that prior to the performance of this student was encouraging me to listen to it, and we found there were different keys, there are different arrangements. If you go right now to Apple Music and to iTunes, you'll see different arrangements. What was super funny was an arrangement that slowed down the song and made it sound a little bit more, I forgot the word they used, but it sounds a lot more cushy, if I could use that word. And so it was really kind of fun to listen to that. So different arrangements of everything is awesome, but I just want to turn your attention to the rap part. So not only did my student sing this song in public, he also did the spoken word part. So have you heard the news everyone's talking of? Wait, let me start that over. Have you heard the news everyone's talking? Life is good because everything's awesome. Lost my job, there's a new opportunity. More free time for my awesome community. I feel more awesome than an awesome possum. Dip my body in chocolate frosting. 3 years later, wash off the frosting. Smelling like a blossom, everything is awesome. Stepped in mud, got new brown shoes. It's awesome to win and it's awesome to lose. And then you have this echo part that you will hear. So everybody cheered. I mean, this person performed this song in front of his parents, in front of a whole group of people, and then did the spoken word part, and everybody went bananas. And then he came back for an encore, did the song again. Everybody was clapping. They were keeping rhythm. You know, he did some more fancy things on stage. And then again, he did the spoken word part. Everybody went nuts. And they were just applauding. I mean, really applauding like this. They really enjoyed it. They really enjoyed it. They had so much fun with it. And so, of course, it goes back into the song, Everything is Awesome. And then it's just a very motivating song. Now, the other spoken word part, I'm just going to say, because that one is a different spirit, but it's still good. It says, blue skies, bouncy springs. We just named 2 awesome things, a Nobel Prize, a piece of string. You know what's awesome? Everything. Everything you see or think or say is awesome. So, you know, that was short. And so this is just part of the song that I have. And there are many versions out there. Now, you may be asking, well, where did you get this music? You can get this music online. There are different copyright. It looks like different copyright controls assigned to the song, so you can see that information. But you can go right online and order it. And I would say step into your local music retail store and see if you can get a copy of the song if you're interested. So I'm glad to share that with you today. And thank you so much for listening. It's early Saturday morning, and you got up early to hear me, and I definitely want to give you something to listen to. So I hope that I have done that this morning. And now as I come back over to my microphone setup, I'm going to close out today's show and close out the episode just by saying thank you so much for tuning in to CMajor Before The Show. And it has been a long series. You've been with me since number 1 when we started out on this podcast journey for learning to play by chords and by color. And what I aim to do is just teach you the most basics. It's not even about the essential elements on this podcast. It really is just teaching you basics. Teaching you things that you can carry back with you and just across your day. So we probably started off with C, F, and G, and then went into other chords. I'm sure we talked about minor chords. For some reason, episode number 4 of this series is showing some popularity. I'm not sure why. I'm going to have to listen back to that episode and see what I said. But we tried different things over the 12 episodes. We were trying to stay on the script. We were trying to go with a long script and then go over into a second and then a third hour. So this podcast has really been through a lot of things already, because what I'm aiming to do is have you get used to hearing my voice, but at the same time get used to hearing some of the information that I'll be sharing on upcoming episodes. So I hope you will tune in next week for a special Halloween presentation, because I want to talk with you about some personal stories and some scary moments, some scary boo moments that have happened in music making. And there have not been too many scary personal moments that have happened in music making. I have to say, probably the most scary thing that happened to me in music making was running across people that told me not to do it. That's always scary. It's like, what do you mean? This is what I live for. Why should I not make music? Or why should I make music in a way that only you will appreciate? I have to make music in a way that will speak to what it is that I need to say on the instrument. So I just want to take some time to encourage you to do that if you can. Just find your own way in music making. Make the best music you can make. I really believe that. I don't like to get preachy about it. This is not a ministry. It really is just a platform to just talk to you about some music making. So I have friends that use a platform to talk about other things, but I really feel called to just talk with you about the many ways you can get into music making and find a way that works best for you. Now, in some cases, you don't have an idea of what you want to do with music. So in that case, it is best to just follow what's available to you. So that means maybe playing in a keyboard group, or you are reading music, learning to read music alongside others. That's always motivating. It's a different way of approaching playing, because when you're in a keyboard class, it's very different. You're not going to get the same one-on-one attention that you would if you took private lessons one-on-one with a teacher or with a professor. But find a way to get into music making however you can. You won't regret it. And I have some friends out there that have formed a band and they know nothing about playing an instrument. I mean, these are real friends, former musicians that I used to work alongside, I'll say it that way. And they didn't know what they were doing, but they knew enough about their love for music that they wanted to try to play an instrument. And then I have some musician friends who have abandoned playing a music instrument altogether. And then they just use music technology, which is wonderful if you are looking to just play some pleasing sounds on an instrument and just hear what music sounds like, going through different filters and things of that nature. So there's so many ways to get into music making. But if your desire is to actually play an instrument, I've had friends that say they just jumped on an instrument and just started playing. They just started to try to find their own way. So I guess in a manner of speaking, this podcast does serve as a self-teaching platform. I can't think of any other way to say it. That I'm talking to musicians, non-musicians that want to teach themselves about music. But the beautiful thing about that is that if you are self-teaching, that you can go into a situation for yourself where you actually get the help of a music professional, somebody that can break it down to you. So, I have one more shout out to the one student that I inherited who had taught herself for an entire year how to play the piano. So let me give a shout out to her, and I'll tell you why in a moment. The reason why I wanted to give a shout out to her is because now we're in a place where she's learning to play Fur Elise by Beethoven, and it's something she's very excited about. Now we put her in an accelerated method so that she can really move fast through some of the basics of music and playing the piano, and she's doing really, really well. If anybody wants to know about that accelerated version, let me know, because it is something that moves you forward. It really does. If you're older, if you are an older beginner, you might appreciate being in an accelerated method, or at least in some cases what publishers call older beginner or later beginner. So she's benefiting from that. I'm really, really happy to see that she's happy. So not only is she learning about how to use all the pedals on her piano, she's learning about intervals, she's learning how to compose, she's starting to write her own music already, and it hasn't even been 12 weeks. I think we're easing toward 12 weeks right now. It's been about 3 months that we've been working together, but she's already been able to make some really nice advancements in her music making. So shout out to her again, and shout out to all of my students that are aiming to do that. Now, adults, if you are thinking about getting into music making, I would say start thinking about it now. Make it a Christmas present to yourself. If you celebrate Christmas and you're thinking about getting yourself a present, music making is always a nice present. Get to your local music store, talk to your local music retailer, get some advice on who's teaching in your communities. And if you are learning online, then you may want to find a way to treat yourself as well to a package that's available for online learning. So I just encourage everyone to find what's going to best work for them. And I know what you're saying. I know what you're thinking. If you're on a budget, you want to work out the finances, and you're thinking, I don't want to spend too much money. How much should I spend? I think every area is different. So I want to say to you, your music lessons are only going to cost you $35 for a half-hour lesson, or they're only going to cost you $40 for a half-hour lesson. There's some adult students who find that price does not work for their budget. And then there are other adult students that are willing to pay an even higher price for lessons. But check and see what the market can bear for your own community, and then negotiate with the teachers. I find that sometimes teachers are willing to negotiate and then just work it in. So it could be 4 lessons, it could be 8 lessons, it could be a year of lessons, it could be 2 years of lessons. For some reason, my adult students want to accelerate their learning, like beyond what's really called for in a year. And so if that's the case, just map out your own ideas for what you want to do. Now, I will caution you to not just aim to learn one song. And I think I said this in the last podcast. Try to learn some method along with that, so you're not feeling like you don't know what's happening on a page. So if your goal was to learn to play one song in particular, maybe you wanted to surprise your spouse with showing that you can play this music, also try to put some method with that as well, and put some technical exercises as well, because what you're going to be faced with, you're going to find yourself having some issues with your fingering if you don't know proper fingering, If you're not hearing where the music is going, you may need to put some theory with that. That's what I mean by method. I mean, it really helps you to understand. It makes playing and understanding the music a little bit more clear. It's nothing to be scary about. What gets scary, and I'm going to say this more about this. I'm going to talk more about this next week in the Halloween podcast. What gets I can hardly even say it because I'm thinking so fast because I know what I want to say, but it's scary to me how when you talk to some people about music theory, they want to spout off all these terms, but yet they don't want to talk application. That's scary. I mean, just having the knowledge of music theory is fine, but it's not going to even make any sense until you can really apply it. And to be honest, it's much, much better if you can demonstrate what's going on. So, for instance, even if I turn to one of the hardest concepts to learn in music, still I should be able to illustrate that on paper or demonstrate to you how to play it. So that would be a goal. But there have been some really scary conversations that I've had with colleagues, and I think a lot of times that they just want to impress you with the knowledge. But I would just say music is supposed to be friendly. It's not supposed to be scary. Just because you know the difference between a perfect cadence and you understand all your cadence points, that's fine. But, make it so that it's plain for everyone else to understand too. So all of these terms that you have to learn as well, they sound very impressive to be able to speak these terms. But don't use it to alienate people. I would say use it to include others in music making and make it as clear as possible. Having said that, I also am an advocate for podcasting. So if you are a music educator out there and you know a lot about music and you spent many years educating your students, you now have an opportunity to educate the public. So I would say if you can, even if you're not that technologically advanced yourself, podcasting is easy. Get on a platform like Spreaker, Blog Talk Radio, and find a way to make your voice heard, because more than ever, we need that. We need that. With music being taken out of the schools and just the whole opportunity to play and understand music has changed so much that you can have a strong voice in really keeping not only the spirit of classical music alive, but the spirit of music alive. Just talking about blues and jazz and talking about ragtime and what you know and just having a conversation with people. I mean, podcasting can be so powerful. So I just invite my colleagues to look into it. Go to Spreaker.com and you'll see how easy it is. If you have access to an iPhone or even an Android phone, podcasting is easy to get into, and then just say what you have to say. So I just want to thank everyone for listening. Thank you so much for listening to the Keyboard Situation series, playing by chords and by color. Yes, there's something to cheer about because we've just finished episode 12. Yes, we've just finished episode 12. And there is no real did you do your homework assignment today. So I'm just going to post those songs that I talked about on the CMajor radio show and let that be the homework for this weekend. So I hope you have a beautiful day. It's a beautiful, crisp Saturday here in the greater New York City area. So there are lots of things to do with your day. If you're just out and about, find a way to either hear some music, play some music, study some music. There's lots that you can learn. If you're into blues, if you're into jazz, learn to play blues scales, learn about voicings, learn about progressions, learn about left-hand accompaniments, learn how to improv. There are just so many basics of music when it comes to jazz and blues. You can learn about Latin, you can learn about rock, you can learn about bebop, you can learn about pop, you can learn about fusion. Just open yourself up to understand how to play and make it quick for yourself, as quick as you need it to be. Make it easy and make it fun. But whatever you do, put some music into your day. This is C Major. I'm inviting you to listen to us next week right here on the C Major radio show before the show. This is C Major Before The Show. And the reason why I have this podcast is because I want to talk to you about music before you get over to the C Major radio show. So thank you so much for listening to C Major Before the Show. It's been a great pleasure to be with you this morning. I hope I sounded awake, and I wish you the best for your day. Next week, our Halloween podcast. So it's going to come with sound effects and everything. And we're going to be looking to tell you some spooky stories about what goes on with music making, but in a spooky, fun, spirited way. So I can't tell you how long that podcast is going to run. It may be short, it may be longer, but parts of it will be scripted because there'll be actual stories. I want you to stay engaged into the story that I'm talking about at the time, that I'm saying at the time. So feel free to tune in for that. So I'm going to sign off now. This is CMajorPorter. Thank you again for listening to C Major Before the Show. Have a wonderful day. Have a wonderful weekend. Find a way to put some music in your day. Make music, make music, make music. Make the best music that you can. And take care. And I'll see you next time right here on C Major Before the Show.